For this lesson, we're going to cover pictorial drawing. A pictorial drawing is a 2D illustration of a 3D object. It usually shows three faces of the object in one view. Here are the three names of pictorial drawings that we use in engineering: isometric, oblique, and perspective. Pictorial drawings provide realistic views of objects. This is an isometric view of the object. These two examples right here are oblique views of an object, and this example right here is a perspective view of an object. In our engineering class, we draw mostly isometric views of objects, but in this lesson, we're going to cover oblique views of objects. There are two types of oblique object views: oblique Cavalier and oblique Cabinet, which we'll cover in just a moment. An oblique pictorial starts with a straight-on view of one of the object's faces, which is often the front face. Angled parallel lines are drawn to one side to represent the object's depth. Common oblique angles include 30 degrees, 45 degrees, and 60 degrees. This example of this image right here, of these blocks, this is an isometric view. And this example right here is the oblique view of this object. So you'll notice this face right here, this front face and this front face are shown front on in the oblique drawing. So it's just a square, 3x3 square. And the angles showing the depth, they're drawn at 45-degree angles. So if you were to draw this object on grid paper, you would basically connect the corners of the grid squares to create that 45-degree angle. So there are two common types of oblique pictorials: Cavalier and Cabinet. The difference between the two is how much depth the object is represented in. This is a Cavalier oblique, and this is a Cabinet oblique. So let's look at this example here. Okay, what I want you to do is also draw out the squares the same height. So on your grid paper, what I want you to do is draw like a 4x4 square. Do the same thing on both sides and draw out this image that you see. Okay, so with a Cavalier oblique view of an object, you have the full height, the full width, and the full depth. The object appears deeper than it actually is. But with a Cabinet oblique, you have half of the depth. So this is the most realistic or more realistic view because it doesn't appear distorted. This looks more natural. So the full depth, so for example, if this was 1 inch in depth, we would draw it half an inch in depth to give it more realistic appearance. So this is Cavalier and this is Cabinet. Again, Cavalier is full depth, Cabinet is half depth. Now I want you to follow along and draw what you see in the steps, creating oblique pictorials of this puzzle piece shown. So we have these in class. These are puzzle blocks. This one is made up of 4 blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're going to imagine a glass box that encloses the entire object. That's what these red lines represent. Imagine a glass box enclosing that entire object. Okay, so get your grid paper ready. And you're going to sketch a rectangle to represent the overall height and width of the box, such that the height lines are vertical and width lines are horizontal. This will give a straight-on view of the front of the object. So the red lines that you see here, I want you to sketch those very, very lightly on your paper. So the overall width is going to be 4 squares across. And the overall height is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares up. So on your grid paper, draw this rectangle and draw that very, very lightly so that you can barely see it. Okay, we're going to complete a Cavalier oblique first. Let's complete the box by sketching depth lines. You're going to connect the corners of this square, and then you're going to go up a little bit, about halfway up on this square right here. Just like that. Make sure to replay this video if you get stuck or need to review. And then next to it on the right side, you're going to draw a cabinet oblique view. So it's the same size rectangle, 4 by 6, but this time you're doing it half depth, which is only about halfway up one of the squares. You would still connect the corner to corner here and here, but you're only going to go halfway up. You're not going to connect all the way up to this corner right here. And then complete your rectangular prism. For step 3, sketching points help you make construction lines to identify the edges of the object faces that occur on the visible surfaces of the box. So here in the example, you have this blue face. That's the front face. That's what we're going to be sketching. So what you see here is there's dots. These dots represent those corners or the edges. So the dot right here represents this dot right here, or this corner. Okay. You can also just go up to and over to right here to find that dot and draw those horizontal and vertical lines. Okay, that escalated very quickly. Forgot I had drawn stuff on here already. And then basically, you're going to sketch what you see here. Those corners, this corner right here, you're going to sketch that 45-degree angle line up. You're going to connect from this point to this point to like right around here, this point, all the way to the edge, just like this example. Okay, so here is what it would look like with those lines being drawn. Just like that. For step 4, use object lines to trace over the construction lines to delineate the edges of the object faces that occur on the visible surfaces of the box. So what you see here, these black outlines, I want you to do that on your graph paper now. Make nice, dark, thick, straight lines using your ruler to create the edges and the object lines of the actual box, or the blocks that you see here. And then continue that. Finish those lines, draw these lines, and then we're going to sketch additional construction lines to identify the edges of the object inside the box. So here we have from the corner upwards, and from here upwards, and then the horizontal line here. Those are construction lines, so make sure you draw those really lightly. And then cover those with your object lines. And next, we're going to create the oblique cabinet view. Okay, so cabinet is half depth, so you're only going to go halfway up. So pause the video, sketch those blocks out, and then use tonal shading to enhance the appearance of the perspective sketch and create a more realistic presentation. Go ahead and pause and draw what you see. After you unpause, here's an example of what your shading might look like. You have a front face with a darker shading. The right sides are lightly shaded and the tops are not shaded at all. Just like that. And here we have some examples from some real world products. So here is the Guitar Hero guitar. This is one of the sketches that you might see if an engineer was designing this. In oblique view, you have the front of the guitar, and then you can see the sides of it going in the oblique cabinet direction. And then here we have a Cavalier representation of interlocking pavement, where you have these bricks and these locking components that would lock the bricks into place. Okay. So for the assignment, this is what I want to see. I want to see your two puzzle pieces. One drawn in Cavalier oblique, one drawn in cabinet oblique. And I also want to see, let me go all the way back. Go back. I also want to see, where is it? I want to see these notes. I want you to draw this. I want to see you draw this just like this with all of the notes on it. Okay? So draw a square, another square, draw a full depth, half depth, write all these notes that you see here labeling it Cavalier oblique, Cabinet oblique, have to have full width, and so on. Okay, so those are the two things I'm looking for. And of course, if you need help, ask questions.